I was joking earlier about starting off by saying, I'm a Fred, Yura Lee.
But
Violinist and violist Yura Lee, it's so good to speak with you.
It's really nice to speak with you and to see you.
When you were 12 years old, 1997, you were the youngest ever Performance Today debut artist of the year. You remember this?
That's right.
What?
Jeff Spurgeon, I think, was hosting that.
Jeff Spurgeon was hosting the awards ceremony.
Yes.
Yes. What did that mean to you at that point in your life?
Looking back, it's not that it didn't mean as much when you're younger, but you know how the perception, like if you, while you're going to school, there was a little hill, but it looked like a mountain, and now it looks like a little hill. That, that difference in perception as the years go by. Now that I've been a professional for 30 years, I can see how much of a significant point it was to be, recognized by people that matter, by people in my profession. But back then I was like, oh, cool plaque. I still remember, it was gold with the treble clef and some, music. Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, my name's on something that's gold. Cool. I mean, you're 12 years old and all you really care about is Mario Kart, right. So back then I think I was just, it was one of those fun moments.
Right.
Now I think about it and go, wow, I listen to NPR to this day and like, wow, I was part of something that meant a lot. I'm very proud of it.
Yeah.
I'm very thankful for it.
Yeah. Well, I'm really proud that Performance Today recognized your talent so early and has watched you grow up and come of age and blossom into this incredible international artist.
Thank you.
And I mentioned at the very beginning that you play violin and viola. A lot of people do that sort of occasionally back and forth, but you're like anytime, ready to go. World-class professional level. Why do that double?
It's a kind of a joke, but not really a joke. That what I really wanted was to understand somewhat the universe through music. And for me, that meant the harmony, the melody, and everything in between. Ideally, that was piano. That wasn't in the cards for me because my hand's still very small. It always was very small. So in my mind, the next best thing was cello. Yet violin was what I was given. And to be honest, the reason why I was given violin was a very insignificant yet a significant story, because at that time, my father was in the Army, my mother was working, and I was 4 years old. And I was given something that was mobile and it was little, therefore thought of it as easy. The smaller the instrument, the easier, that's what people around me thought because they weren't into music. So when I learned violin starting 4 years old, and I loved the instrument and it was part of my voice, but I've always wanted to be a musician more than an instrumentalist. Not that the instrumental knowledge and capacity didn't interest me, but the satisfaction of hearing music as a whole structure, as almost like a micro universe in a way, where you feel everything from all different sides and you hear so many angles and meaning. That's what I want to do as a musician. So thankfully, I've been doing both for a while now, and the kind of musical life I lead gets me to be all those things, lead from the bottom, follow from the top, and everywhere in between, which is really satisfying.
Yura, I love the way you set this whole thing up. You said that for you, you wanted music to be a way of understanding the universe. This is not just about making something pretty. This is not just about being on stage and having people clap for you. This is about understanding the great mystery that is all around us all the time. I love that.
It's the more we know, the more we realize what we don't know, isn't it? And the why is, I think, just as interesting as what. And we all have our ways of learning about our life. And why we exist and what's life affirming for each of us. And for me, what music gives me is, such an amazing, wonderful way every day anew. I think very life affirming to be able to not just receive it as a listener, but to feel it somatically.
Viscerally.
Very viscerally, and what a privilege it is to be able to do that.
I'm just really touched by this, because I have to say, the deeper I get into this life and my relationship with music, I'll try to tell this story very briefly. Maybe 10 years ago, no, less than that, American public media had this little slogan around classical music. Music makes you feel better. And a part of me was like, oh, that's really trite, and do I have to say that on the air? And I don't know. And I was speaking to a group of male inmates at a prison in Georgia, and a kind of light bulb went off, and I was telling them about this, and what I had to say was, as a man, I grew up understanding that my feelings were not important, and that expressing my feelings was even less important and less welcome in the world. And I realized that music makes me feel better, in the sense music makes me better at feeling. Music helps me understand myself and this world so much better. So I'm so touched by the way you described your relationship with music.
Well, I'm really, this is the way we feel not alone, right? To be able to connect on something that we approach from different angles, but in a way we're closer through our different relationships with music, isn't it? We as in the royal we, the audiences,
Right.
the people that live, with this in their life.
Yeah, everyone who connects through this and with this. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we get so many recordings of you playing on chamber music stages in particular, across the country and around the world. I mean, you're at all the great chamber music festivals everywhere, and have become a real anchor of many of these places. And one of the things you're doing at 2024 SummerFest here in La Jolla, California, is playing this piece by Bela Bartok called Contrasts. Part of what the composer asks for is that you have a violin that's tuned differently. So it works best if you have two different violins, right?
Yes, because it happens almost immediately after. One happens immediately after
So you don't
the
have
other.
time to retune, you have to put one down and pick the other one up.
Exactly. I love Bartok's language, because he is one of the, he's not the first, but it's one of the rarer people, in my opinion, who embrace the beauty of grotesque as well as the beauty of, the floral, pleasant, or even romantic beauty. He writes in a lot of the music ruvido or the Bartok pits as we know it, the one that snaps, that is more
You're
of a
plucking and the string comes down and hits the fingerboard. Pow!
So it's more of the violin becomes a percussive instrument more than a strung instrument. So he really explores a lot of that. But for me, it really hits close to home. It really speaks to my gut, because I think a lot of it is the folk music. Even the folk music is different everywhere in the world. The way we feel emotion, I find, is quite, I wouldn't say singular, but one culture can understand another through their folk music. The lament, the happiness, the joys, the
love, loss,
exactly,
life, death. Yeah.
That happens to all of us in different forms, but in a more similar than different ways.
Yeah.
So when Bartok writes something like this for a scordatura, which is tuned differently, therefore making a sound that is nasal and almost like as if you're hearing music on like a street fiddler playing with a lot of joy and gusto and a lot of as much passion, but a different kind of passion, more unbridled passion that isn't structured and honed in by 20 years of Western education, but just doing it for the heck of it.
A lot of violinists who play this piece will borrow their friend's violin. So, maybe they have a Strad and they're borrowing a Guarneri or, a French 19th century violin. Tell me what you're using for the second violin in that piece here in La Jolla this summer.
Well, I'm a big fan of if you're gonna go to the buffet, just be a gourmand. If you're gonna play something that is very fiddly, really go all the way with it. So when I got here in La Jolla a few days ago, I searched for local music shops, and luckily I found one very just a couple streets away where it's a shop for students, like kids learning instrument. And I went there and said, I would like the worst 3/4 size violin that you have, please. And the person at front was so confused. I used the word, I want it to be janky. And this person said, do you really mean janky? I'm like, yes. And the person just repeated over and over again, I have something better. I'm like, no, thank you. I want the worst one that you have, the most nasally sounding, the brightest orange you can find. So I rented one for $14 for a whole month. It's $14 per month. And it's the perfect, just wrong enough kind of instrument to play the beginning of this contrast movement for.
That's fantastic. Yura, you play on stages around the world. For these events here at SummerFest, you literally just drive down the coast from your home base in Los Angeles. For you, what's special about La Jolla SummerFest?
My first time at SummerFest was, I believe, 1994. So this is 30 years ago.
So you were how old?
I was 9. This is one of the first concerts I've ever done.
Wow.
Professionally. And how should I put it? The fact that this still exists in this way today means that there are classical music lovers they're die-hard lovers. And for me, it's really great to see. There are people who have been listening to my music for 30 years who still come to the concerts today, and then they encourage their children, their younger friends to come. So it's such a close-knit community of music lovers. And now with the programming that we have, for example, this year, they're exposed to so many different contexts of music. And with open arms, they'll be listening to the Brahms sextets as well as Bartok or as Thomas Addis, I feel like for me, I love seeing these festivals evolve with the musicians and with the times and with the compositions of the day, and also exploring the previously written compositions and how it juxtaposes. And it's a joy to see it really change and become something of like a life of its own in a way.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, I love living in LA because as musicians, we spend a lot of time indoors, oftentimes underground, and there's nothing like working on music really, really hard for 5 hours and going out and feeling like you're a plant that's getting photosynthesized outside. And I love LA and I love Southern California. It's really I feel very lucky to call this home.
Yeah. So you're at this interesting point in your professional life, almost an inflection point. Mm. What sorts of decisions are you making right now? Where do you see yourself, let's say, in the next 5 years?
Mm. Well, as we all know, body is an expendable, shall I call it, object, as much as we want to take care of it. So the fact that my profession is so bound by dexterity and by mobility and by, the clarity in body, that's a really challenging thing to feel at my age. I'm 39 now, and I can't say that I'm old in the way society sees old, but I'm also not a spring chicken. So I really have to make all of my physical exertion matter, because there's a finite energy and time that I have left. So in the next 5 years, I find myself looking at who am I, what does it mean to me, and what brought me here. So a couple of the projects that I'm really excited about doing is premiering a concerto written by a Korean composer. I'm of Korean descent. Viola concerto of all, that's even more exciting. I'm doing that with LA Phil next season. So I'm really excited about that. It's like, it couldn't be more me and my people. Yet at the same time, what got me here, the two composers that really got me musically and spiritually where I am now is Bach and Schubert. So I'm planning to do all 12 Bach sonatas, partitas, and then cello suites, and spending a lot of time really, I wouldn't say perfecting, but acknowledging how those pieces have internalized in my hands and in my mind and my body in the last 30 years, because I've been working on them for the last almost 30 years. Actually more than 30 years for the Bach, because I was doing them since I was a student. So it's a lot of looking back, acknowledging who I am now, which is a more, I would say, less perfect, quote unquote, specimen than I was 20 years ago, because we are getting older and my fingers are getting slower and all that. But how do I make it really count in the way that I can not make a mark, but make a difference for the younger musicians and for the music world that I'm very lucky to be part of?
I can't wait to see and hear how that comes together. You are also one of the very few musicians who has been a guest host of Performance
That's
Today,
right. That's
which we loved having you do, and I hope we can do again.
Yes, that would be such a pleasure. Yes, I have to say, it made me more nervous than being in Carnegie Hall. Speak, because we're so used to speaking without words, and then suddenly the words mean something so, so directly, and then but it was so fun.
You were great, and we'd love to have you do it again.
Thank you.
Yura Lee, thank you so much. Always great to see you and talk with you.
Same, thank you.